Hey, friend, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a special best of episode for you, and honestly, the timing could not be better. As we head into the holidays, a season where everyone feels the pressure to do all of the things, I wanted to bring you a conversation that reminds us of the power of choosing what not to do. This episode with strategy and transformation expert Joe Wishon was one of the most downloaded of the year, and for good reason. We talk about simplifying, focusing on fewer priorities, and reclaiming your effectiveness, all things that become even more important during this busy season. So, if you are navigating Q1 planning, maybe juggling year-end expectations, or simply trying to protect your peace between all of the holiday events, this replay is going to land differently in the best possible way. So, without further ado, let's dive into this best of episode and give ourselves permission to do less with more intention. You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Arnold Burke. In today's episode, I'm discussing the strategy behind the scenes, mastering your internal choreography, with strategy and transformation expert Joe Wishon. Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. I have a treat for you today, especially if you are someone who might be like me, starting a new fiscal year, needing to do a business plan, or you know what, honestly, maybe you're just getting ready to figure out Q3. The information in today's episode will be super helpful because today I am sharing a recent interview with Joe Wishon. Now, Joe is on a mission to rescue leaders from the tyranny of endless priorities. We are all about that, right? There needs to be a stop to it. For over 2 decades, he has been the secret weapon behind successful enterprise transformations, equipping executives with the tools to cut through complexity and deliver consistent results. Again, something we could all benefit from. Consistent results. Now, listen, his unique approach combines strategic clarity, disciplined execution, and breakthrough methodologies that turn overwhelming challenges. And in a business world bombarded by constant distraction, Joe helps leaders find their focus, reclaim their effectiveness, and finally experience the satisfaction of seeing their strategies become reality. We had so much fun talking strategy, and I may or may not have made some confessions on, shall we say, some areas of opportunity that I could benefit from. And also, be sure to listen because it's a super cool story how we met. Now, without further ado, please go ahead, take a listen. Okay, this is going to be so much fun. Thank you for being here. And how about if we just get started by you introducing yourself in a way that you most enjoy?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, my name's Joe Wishon. I live in California. I've been in kind of the corporate world for the past 20 years, helping leaders get results. There's background in improvement and running manufacturing plants. I've done Lean Sigma for a while. I kind of jumped out of the corporate world and have been consulting. I spend a lot of time overseas. I've done lots of different things in lots of different countries. But yeah, I just absolutely love more than anything helping leaders be successful. I think it's hard in leadership these days. I think it's getting harder and harder. I think it's getting more and more complex. And there's not a lot of things that are working in the opposite direction. We're not making things simpler. We're not making things easier. And that's kind of what I'm all about. I'm all about tools, techniques, approaches that really work, but are super simple. And that's what I'm all about. And I feel really fortunate now that I'm in consulting because I can bring that more directly to leaders every day. And I just love that. I just love when life gets a little bit easier for the leaders around us.
Oh my gosh, that is music to my ears. It's so funny because I always joke with our team. I probably shouldn't say this maybe out loud on the podcast, but the truth is, we have an organizational health survey and they always ask how the company makes your life so much easier. And I usually do I highly disagree. So I think you're on to something, which kind of leads me because this kind of leads me to how we met, which I think you talked about consulting, but you also do coaching. And so I just find it so fascinating that we're kind of here having this conversation because we met back in 2017 right? When we were in a small group setting and we had to go around and
Yes,
introduce ourselves. And it turns out of how many was it? 65 back then as the large
probably.
group.
Yeah.
And then our small group of 10, you and I, work at the same place. How crazy.
Work at the same place in different states, in different divisions. I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely just one of those coincidences. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's so great that you're here now, and it was so funny. We were talking right before we hit record as far as you helping the people in sales because you come more from the strategy and the corporate that we kind of, go back and forth maybe with. So can you talk a little bit about your experience there and the strategy part of it? And I would love to kind of get your wisdom on what you think are some important skills for people in the field because you do have a way different picture, I think, than we do at our granular level and in general, not just necessarily specific to, where you've come from, but in general.
Yeah, let me start with the first part of the question around, being inside kind of the corporate strategy group, if you want to call it that. I'm a little bit of a different flavor. I think that often when we talk about strategy, that word means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I have a very specific skill set when it comes to strategy. Most people are going to think about something like, should we go into this space or that space? The competitors are doing this and that, and so how should we compete? That's like more of a typical definition of strategy, and that's not necessarily where I live. What I'm all about is once you pick your strategy, did you actually do what you said you were going to do? And if we were going to be really honest with each other, the reality is you generally don't. If you pick 10 things, you're probably doing 2. Because life at work is just chaos. You get emails, inbox, meetings, strategy changes, competition did this. Oh my gosh, product didn't launch or did launch. And it's just like a swirl for a year. Then you get back together and you create a new strategy or you update. But if I really held you to how many of those 10 things you actually did, that batting average or the number you actually did is painfully low. And that's where I live. I'm all about taking you from a 2 out of 10 organization to an 8 out of a 10 organization. Now, there's no such thing as 9 out of 10 and 10 out of 10. There's just too many unknowns. But too many organizations are struggling with the ability to literally just execute their said strategy. So I'm a strategy execution guy. So back to the folks in the field, you know this better than anybody. And that's kind of like that connection is like, we have to be an organization that is picking a target and they're able to hit it. And all this stuff kind of rolls downhill. And I think people in the field see it very, very much where I thought we were doing this. I thought we were doing this. Why are we turning left again? We already turned left in 2015. We turned left in 2019. And now we're turning left again in 2025. And I know you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I am literally the guy inside the building trying to make that a little bit better.
That is so spot on. And it actually, I feel like it's perfect timing because we are going into kind of setting Q1 goals and what is the strategy. And I do feel like, full transparency, that I'm even guilty. Sometimes we do the business planning, but then, a new doctor comes in or something else happens over here. And then I do kind of think like, all right, so we come back again at the end of the quarter. How much did we actually do? Like we created the end result of making our numbers. Was it in the way that we said? No. Do we need to go back and reassess? So I think what you're talking about is so fascinating. I wonder, because you talked about the simple, making it simple with the tools first, would you suggest instead of picking the 10 things that you just start with the 2 to 4 things as far as strategy so that your batting average goes up?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts around that?
Yes, actually, that's very well said because I use 10 as an example, but the actual number I'd like to see everybody have is about 2 to 3. So the way this would work in a executive room with a bunch of leaders, or even with any one of the sales reps that are listening to this, if I said to you, I want you to focus over the next quarter, maybe 2 quarters, what are those things you want to focus on? I'm going to tell you to pick 3. You're going to say, I need 12. I'm going to say pick 3. You're going to say I need 10. And you're going to tell me all these stories and all these justification and reasons of why it needs to be 10. No, it has to be 3. You get 3 slots. So you actually said that very well, which is 2 to 4. Fine, let's go with that. So my job is actually to say 2, and then I maybe give you up to 4, and then we all are happy. But whatever those things are, I would suggest that you pick a few of those things and what are those most important things, and then make sure those get done. Now, you mentioned doctor did this, doctor did that, and maybe that creates a distraction or a lack of focus or a swirl. Well, that's kind of life, though, right? So we have to strike a balance between being adaptive and responsive and smart about some of the things that are happening. Like maybe doctor did X, and I think it's a good thing. to maybe attend to that or move in that direction, but at what expense or at what cost? So what we're going to do is we're going to make the argument that not at the expense of those three things. So if we pick these three things at the beginning of the quarter, I'd like to see a little bit longer than a quarter, but let's just say some time horizon. These are the three things. At the end of the year, you're going to have two conversations. You're going to have a conversation about how these are the three things I said I was going to do. And at the end of the year, you're like, well, we didn't get those three things done, but I did this and I did this and I did this. And there's all this story time about all the stuff you did, but you didn't get the three things done, right? The other version of the end of the year conversation is these are the three things we said and we got all three done, and some other things didn't get done. And we have to choose which story we want to finish the year in. So I think if you can maintain your focus strategically on a few things while creating space for being adaptive, that's actually what I call real life. But we just can't allow that adaptiveness to take away from the ability to execute the three. And everybody needs to be very, very careful because there's a lot of positive reinforcement from being adaptive. So we're all humans here, right? So we go away from pain, we go toward pleasure. So when you hustle and you do that thing for the doctor and they're very happy, you feel good, right? Playing the long game on your original strategic choices doesn't have that feedback loop. So it's a very humanistic thing of like where we tend to go toward immediate urgency, fear, or reward. And to be steady against the original three is the skill I want everybody to develop.
That is so good. And I think it also feeds into the idea, I see this across the industry, I'm guilty of it, like the busy badge of honor, right? So if I'm doing over here and I'm not focused over here, I feel like I am, to your point, more productive or doing more. But am I really? And I just want to kind of go back. You said you would like a longer kind of horizon. So what do you think is, if you're picking the three goals, what would you say is a reasonable kind of horizon? Because what I'm thinking when we do our next planning for Q1 is that maybe I do top line items for 6 months out. And then we also have like secondary ones, which would be Q1. Like, what are your thoughts on that timing of those 3, 2 to 4, whatever number, we're focused on?
Great question. So I would recommend selecting your top three, these things, we'll call them the vital few things after Edwards Deming. So the vital few, the most important things you're going to get done, I would say those are a 6 to 12 month horizon. So everybody's in different businesses and so you have different considerations. But let's say minimum 6 months, maximum 12 months, because things can change after 12 months. So that's a good target. And then what are those three things and what does that look like? I probably wouldn't do a quarter milestone on a 2-quarter look. I would do what are you going to get done this month and what are you going to get done next month? So I would do 6 1-month chunks in a 2-quarter horizon. If you had like a year horizon for your three things, then I would do quarterly chunks, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good because then, I'm thinking we have our quarterly numbers to hit. But I will say that I am usually like, my mindset is live for today. If we need to like bulk or if we need to like whatever. And then we do have the option for those like long-term goals on our business plan that I'm usually like, okay, yeah, we'll take care of that next quarter. But this is a whole mindset shift. And I think it makes sense that you would be more successful if you start looking for the long game and longevity at the 6 months, year, and then fill underneath. Almost like those are your big rocks in the jar. And then you put your small rocks in for a month and whatever.
That's right. And I'm being intentionally provocative by breaking the quarterly mindset with you. I know how reps think. And that hustle badge of honor is so ingrained that you think in quarters, right? So I did that on purpose because I think that it might not be serving you. It may be the way the business is run, but I would like you to ask yourself, is quarterly thinking serving you the best? And if we sat down and did one-on-one coaching sessions, 90% of you would say it is not. Because you're overworked, you're stressed, you're not focused, and you know it, right? So it can't be working for you. So that's what I'm saying is like, you've got to start to break free from that because your incentives and your comp are already tied there, right? And we move as we're incentivized. So if you can think about monthly chunks, you'll end up having a more predictive quarter so that you don't have so much hustle at the end of the quarter. But then by having a 6 to 12 month look, you can call those big rocks. I'm going to chip away or nurture these bigger rocks over a longer horizon. And I'm going to make sure those exist, the work on those things exists within my quarter. So you don't just get focused on hitting your number.
This is so fascinating because I've done a lot of work on this. I am so guilty. In fact, we were just having this conversation with my manager because I feel like year after year, quarter after quarter, I'm like at the last hour of the last day because I get that dopamine hit and then I'm like, yes, we made it. And the past couple quarters, we've hit our number before the end of the quarter. I'm like, kind of boring. Like, what am I doing now? We don't have the dopamine hit. But I do feel like it frees up your mind to start thinking in advance of like, what can we do right next? So you're just saying like move all of that even sooner into the timeline to be able to think
Exactly.
more clearly.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing that story because why don't we do this, right? So I can talk all day long in systems, but the reason we do or don't do these things is because of our human behavior and our human nature. So when you describe like the dopamine hit, that's actually what's going to get in the way, right? So I'm going to call it like coasting over the quarter. Like really let that rattle around in your head for a bit. Like for everybody, it's like, can you really imagine a future where you're so good and you're strategic, so you're knocking out 1 to 3 big rocks all a year, and so you're making strategic plays, and it's getting easier for you to coast over the quarter. Like you really have to ask yourself, is that like a good definition of a success for you?
Yeah.
Because if it's not, you're gonna go, nope, I like the excitement of the end of the quarter, and you'll bail on the system and you'll bail on the business.
I will have to be intentional because my brain, as soon as you said coast over the quarter, hears not work hard. And so I think there's like that, right? That can be like a whole nother direction that like coasting seems easy and this is not supposed to be easy. Or my mind thinks this is a whole nother topic. I'm sure, making money is supposed to be, you're supposed to work hard. And that whole idea of coasting in air quotes seems, yeah, I'm working on it, but I'm sure I'm not the only one listening. Oh,
Well, you're not the only one, and I really appreciate you saying that because what you and I talk about in this list like coded language about what are we making that mean? And so coasting, you in your example have made it mean that you're not working hard. And I think that's an interesting choice because for me, I find that to be smart, working smart. We all know the quote, work smarter, not harder. And so we have to really believe that like working smarter is something that I want. And then coasting is actually a reflection of that. Otherwise, yeah, we actually think it's not hard work and that's not your identity. But nope, I'm a hard worker, but we've defined that as hustle.
yes, yes, yes. That's so good. Okay, so now if you were coaching us, when you talk about kind of the accountability section of the execution, what do you do with people that you work with? Is it that you would meet with them every month to get feedback, or how do you kind of, well, for lack of hold people's feet to the fire, lack of
You mean
better saying?
from my coaching clients?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah,
or in general, if it was corporate, you're coaching clients now. But when you're looking big picture, yeah, how do you kind of hold the accountability section there?
Yeah, let me start with the corporate side. So on a corporate, we do it weekly. So on a corporate side, if you said this thing is the most important thing, you got whatever, pick a number, $1 billion in revenue underneath. Okay, so these are the most important things. We're going to talk about that weekly, but it's not accountability to result. It's an accountability to the progress toward the result. So it's all about leading indicators. We have to be weekly accountable to the things we said we were going to do that are going to deliver the result. Otherwise, you wait until the result is behind and then you try to like cram it at the end. So it's really important for corporations to do it that way because corporations move much slower. They're like big ships in the ocean. Contrasting that with a smaller organization or even a rep, you guys are like little quick moving boats. You actually can turn quick, but a large organization can't turn quick, yet they think they can. And then that's where they get in trouble. It's so much slower, so you have to be much further in advance.
Okay.
For an individual, I do monthly. On an individual basis, if I was to hold anyone accountable, it would be like, what are the things you said you're going to do this month? And then did you do them? And that's not the hustle stuff. This is an activity. This is the big rocks. So the big rocks are going to get done in, let's say, a 6 to 12 month window. These are the main pieces of work that I'm going to do. What's that piece I'm getting done at the end of this month? And then did I do it? And I measure batting average. So if I said I was going to do these 6 things at the end of the month, where am I? Am I kind of getting 4 out of 6, or am I more like a 2 out of 6? And we talk, because if you're getting like 2 out of 6, something's going on. If we can increase that to like a 4 or 5 out of 6, for example, you will get your big rocks done. That's the whole point, is to get a monthly leading indicator of high execution rate at about 80%.
80%. Okay. And what do you think is the biggest skill when you're working, and this can be big picture corporate or with reps or with your clients, when you're talking strategy, is there like one skill set that you think is like gold?
100%. So I was in a workshop last week. Someone asked me, Joe, of all the companies that you've worked with, obviously there are these ones that transform and there are these ones that don't. What is the difference? Very similar question. And the answer is the ability to stop doing things.
Mm.
When's the last time a corporation ever stopped anything? They're like adding machines. They're adding calculator machines. They are not subtraction machines. So every year we have new priorities. Every year we have new products. We have new leaders, new processes. And when's the last time we ever went through a subtraction process? When's the last time we stopped anything? So if you really want to look at corporation against corporation, the one that has the ability to stop work, take those resources and redeploy them on the important stuff, they will outpace you all day long. Now, on a personal standpoint, it is also true. I would reframe it from stopping to saying no. So how often are you saying no, and how often are you saying yes? Just get a rough gut check. Are you like mostly yeses and you can't even remember the last time you said no? Or are you kind of some other percentage? And do you have enough self-awareness of that ratio and why you say no and why you say yes? And that we kind of dig into that. But corporations have to stop doing stuff. Us as individuals, we need to learn to say no to stay focused.
That's so, I think that's so important because that's what I talk about a lot here. And it's so fascinating because I never really made then the leap to the corporate part of it. But I always feel like where we can have growth is when we stop being people pleasing, right? And stop saying all the yeses and paying attention to what we're saying yes to. Why are we saying it? Why do we say no? But I never really thought, and I think that's probably because when you talk about, right, it comes from the top and then down. I just keep doing also. If that's what they're doing, they're like, let's all, instead of like pumping the brakes and being like, hey, how about we try this?
Right. And it's also very taboo. So with a little bit of empathy here, right? So inside the corporation or the organization, there is not a lot of experience or rhythm or comfort with stopping. Like, when's the last time you're in a room with a bunch of leaders and the whole room's like, yes, let's stop something? Like, nobody can remember when that happened. And what happens is we get rewarded and incentivized for saying yes. When someone says, can we do this? And someone across the room says, I'll take care of it. All of a sudden they are acknowledged, promoted, celebrated. So we're literally incentivizing the wrong behavior. And then if you actually took a peek into the organizations that transform and you actually like pulled the hood back and looked in, they're saying no a lot. And their culture is built in a way to say, hang on, this idea just came up, but these are our focus areas. So if we activate this thing, is it going to draw attention or resources away from what we said we were going to do? There's almost like an internal discipline within the leadership team. And so I think that's what's really important to remember is if you're in an environment that encourages us to be saying yes, people are very motivated by self-preservation. So it's not surprising that they're going to kind of buy into that because it's better for their career and it's better for themselves. So it can be very, very hard to turn a ship without like some serious intention around that culture shift or that top-down approach.
Yeah. And I think too, when you say that, it also makes sense then that if we're, we spend so many hours of our day in that work mindset that it just rolls into our personal life, that we continue that same, how we do one thing is how we do many things, right? So the same pattern is yes, yes, yes. And we wonder why we feel stressed and burnt out and overwhelmed.
Exactly. So going back to the example of a doctor said this and wants to do that, and we're trying to execute our big rocks. So let's just apply that same thinking is as you approach your month or your week, you have to keep an eye on your big rocks. I literally recommend putting those three things, print them out on paper. All good things are one page, and take that page and carry it around with you. Literally make it the screenshot on the back of your phone when you turn it on. Put those three things there. So it's always reminding you to keep those things in the forefront. And then you can say yes to the doctor here, the doctor there. I'm using that as a proxy for anything, but be really careful of that. I'm going to use the word onslaught, that barrage of distraction. You have to increase your nose against that distraction wave so you can make sure you have time on your rocks. And if you happen to pull out your phone and you haven't looked at a rock in 3 weeks, that's a problem.
Check the rocks. Okay, so now the next question on that is, do you suggest that people do separate rocks for personal and professional? Or do you pick like 3 across the board of what is important to you in that season of your life?
Yeah, it really depends on kind of like where you work and what you're kind of quote unquote dealing with at home. So I think it's not unrealistic to have 3 at work and 3 at home. I think that's fine. Some of those might overlap, like you're trying to upgrade your emotional resilience or your mental resilience, which will help you at work and home, or diet or something like that. But yeah, if it's more than 3 at work and 3 at home, then be careful, right? You got to make sure that the total is low and executable. And here's why. I would much rather a person pick less and actually win and actually crush it, and then take themselves out to do something nice for themselves as celebration with the people that you care about, and then pick up the next one next month. And that's another discipline of staggering to build momentum like a flywheel that I talk about a lot about with my clients and corporate clients as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I do feel like that's definitely going to give you more momentum once you feel, because that could be kind of your new dopamine hit, right? Like you've accomplished those 3 things and then you get your dopamine hit and then you can move on to the next one.
Exactly.
See, I can't get rid of that dopamine hit yet.
Okay, we're gonna move the dopamine to the leading indicator. I think that'll work.
Let's negotiate that and then we'll check back on the next coaching call.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. Have we, we could just keep going and going and going. But usually we make these short, but maybe we even just think about doing another one, because I do feel like all of what you're talking about is so helpful. And this specific conversation, I feel like, is super timely because our fiscal year is different. So we are looking at all of those plans. I know I am going to take some of this mindset and try to look bigger picture, and kind of help our team with that too. And maybe even start to look at where we can say no. I definitely think I've gotten better since coaching. And I will be honest, I mean, back in the day, the reason I even went to that certification was because I thought this job is crazy. It is all the time. I have no time to myself. And I know people feel like that, but it can be different. And these are the things, the tools that you're kind of sharing here, talking about, that can really be super helpful in keeping some sense of sanity.
Yeah, and just to take that one step further, like the reason our system works so well is because it's a system. So let me unpack that a little bit. So in that example, you mentioned like the job was just crazy, right? And so now I'm going to like apply some tools. We take it a step further. And what do we do is we build a system. And this system can work for you as an individual, as a rep, or for an organization. So what does that mean? What's the difference? Well, like the thermostat in your house is a system, right? When you set the temperature and it gets too cold, the heater automatically kicks on and brings you up to temp. And then if it gets too hot, the AC kicks on and brings you back to temp. That's a system. It's not just a tool that's kind of thrown at the chaos of your job. And so that's really where the power comes in. Is I would ask, you and your listeners, like, do you have a system that allows you to regulate? And 99 out of 100 people listening are going to say, I do not. I have tools, I have techniques, and I have things that have worked in the past. And what we really do is we bring a system that will help you self-regulate. So there are seasons where you're very busy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But are you running at an 11 out of a 10 for the last 25 months? Okay, that's not regulated. So there's ups and there's downs, and we have to learn and understand how to apply tools to move through those ups and downs, as opposed to attempting to control all the things that you have going on or attempting to control the market. So we got to get out of that control and into a trusted system.
Oh, that's a whole nother, yes, control. There's definitely a thing or two. I like to say I'm a control enthusiast because I feel like control freak sounds a little crazy, but that is definitely a whole nother Pandora's box that we could be talking about for sure. So now when you work with people, is it that you as your company, you as a coach kind of have systems, like foundations, big picture thoughts, and then when you work with each individual or company, like you just make it more specific to their needs at the time?
Yes. So the system that we implement can handle any company in any market, right? So the point there is that the system is agnostic to what your particular industry is. What it does is it makes sure that you have the internal choreography that results in execution. That's what's broken. Everybody thinks it's like a market issue. It's not. It's a we issue. Like if you're not doing what you said you're going to do, I don't care what your strategy is. You're not going to do it anyway. So it's the internal choreography that's broken. Same thing with our human lives. Like, hey, I know I should eat broccoli and I know I should go to the gym every day. And guess what? You haven't been to the gym in 30 days. It's not that I need another book on going to the gym and eating broccoli. It's the internal choreography that's broken. So these systems, and they're very, very simple. That's my whole thing. I am relentless on simplicity. That's, if it's not adding value, it is out of my toolbox. So that's what we do, is we bring it in, and then it's got range. So it can go everything from the high level strategic all the way down to the execution.
This has been amazing. Are we missing anything?
No, maybe how to reach me if you want to reach
Yes,
out.
for sure. Definitely. We need them in the notes. And then, if there's nothing else more, then yes, please let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me at SierraInsightsGroup.com, SIERRA Insightsgroup.com, and then Joe at SierraInsightsGroup.com will work. And yeah, it's been absolutely a pleasure. It's so fun to talk to you. And like you said, like any one of these things, like we can like unpack and let me know like what listeners are interested in, want to hear more about. I'm happy to jump on again, and we can go in any direction that would be beneficial to everybody.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, wasn't that great? There were so many nuggets of gold and so much good information that Joe had to share with us. I am telling you, I think I would love to have him back for maybe like a quarterly check-in, and we can all be on top of our game as far as strategy and mindset combination. I think we talked about a number of topics that can really be spot on for most folks listening in this industry. And don't forget to go ahead and connect with Joe. Joe at SierraInsightGroup.com and SierraInsightsGroup.com is the website. We will have those links in the notes. Okay, that's what I have for you today. Let's meet back here next week. But for now, make it a great day. Take care. Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburkecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.